They controlled 90% of the global market. They were the absolute king of photography. But Kodak didn't just see the future, they invented it. And then, they locked it in a dark room and hoped it would die. In 1975, a 24-year-old Kodak engineer named Steven Sasson walked into a boardroom. He was holding a toaster-sized device. It was the world's first digital camera. It didn't use film. It used sensors and data. It was ugly, slow, and took 23 seconds to record a single image. But it was a revolution. When he presented it to Kodak's executive leadership, they didn't celebrate. They didn't see a billion-dollar breakthrough. They looked at it with disgust and asked one arrogant question. Why are we wasting our time with this? No one will ever want to look at their photos on a television set. At its peak, Kodak was an unstoppable monopoly. The Kodak moment wasn't just a slogan. It was a global psychological anchor. Their chemical film business was a money-printing machine, generating billions in pure profit. Internally, the corporate religion was simple. Chemical photography is eternal. Digital is a useless toy. That belief was their first fatal mistake. Sasson knew what he had. His prototype was primitive, but the trajectory was clear. Digital photography meant unlimited pictures, instant feedback, and zero film costs. But this terrified Kodak's leadership. Their entire business model relied on selling disposable rolls of film and chemicals. So, instead of leading the digital revolution, they chose to fight it. They buried the invention. They hid it from the world. And more importantly, they hid it from themselves. By the late 1980s, internal research teams handed executives a devastating report. The data was undeniable. Digital photography would completely overtake film by the year 2010. They had a 10-year head start. They owned the patents. But leadership looked at their current balance sheets. Film sales were breaking records. The profits were blinding them to reality. Their response was pure corporate arrogance. We are Kodak. We define the industry. The market will wait for us. While Kodak slept in its chemical fortress, the world woke up. Sony, Canon, and Nikon didn't hesitate. They embraced the digital wave. They poured billions into research. They started scaling. By the time Kodak finally wiped the sleep from its eyes, it was already too late. They hadn't just lost their market share. They had lost the entire technological ecosystem. By the 1990s, Kodak panicked. They finally started making digital cameras. But even then, they couldn't let go of their ego. They crippled their own digital products. They designed cameras to push users toward buying Kodak printers and Kodak photo paper. They weren't trying to build the digital future. They were trying to build a digital fence around their dying film empire. The real rot inside Kodak was its culture. Employees later revealed that challenging the film-first narrative was career suicide. If you talked too loudly about digital disruption, you were marginalized. Bad news was filtered out before it reached the top floor. Positive data was inflated. It was an echo chamber of executives telling each other exactly what they wanted to hear. Truth could not survive in that boardroom. In 1993, the digital market began to explode exactly as their own researchers had predicted. Film sales went off a cliff. The numbers tell a story of absolute destruction. In just a few short years, Kodak's stock plummeted by 99%. A company once valued at over $30 billion simply evaporated. Tens of thousands of loyal employees lost their jobs. Massive factories were abandoned and left to rot. And in 2012, a century after dominating the globe, the unthinkable happened. Kodak filed for bankruptcy. The company that literally invented the digital camera was forced to exit the market it created, killed by the very technology it birthed. So why did Kodak really fail? Not because they lacked vision, not because they lacked resources or patents. They failed because of their paralyzing ego. They prioritized the safety of yesterday's profits over the risk of tomorrow's innovation. They failed because they stopped listening to the data. Protecting their past cost them their future. Kodak's story is a warning for every CEO and every company on Earth. Right now, inside a wildly successful corporation, an engineer is raising a red flag. Data is being ignored, and an arrogant leader is saying, "We're too big to fail." Until suddenly, they aren't. Kodak didn't fail because they couldn't see the future. They failed because they were terrified of it.